Hey guys, we made it to season 5 of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and in this season, we aim to empower and embrace creativity through diversity as we dive into the fascinating stories and experiences of a diverse range of individuals, highlighting their unique perspectives and creative endeavors, from artists and entrepreneurs to innovators and activists. We celebrate the power of diversity in driving creativity and fostering positive change. Join us as we engage in thought-provoking conversations like...
I made myself intentionally homeless in pursuit of my purpose.
We're aware that a lot of people want to present and they were in my position, and what's worse, they weren't a white male, which is a joke that's even still a thing.
I think my family never ever say you can't do something, so full of support for whatever dream. If I said tomorrow I want to fly to the moon, they'll probably say I wish you all the best, Mel.
So guys, I just want to say thank you for supporting the Us People podcast for the past 5 years, and we look forward to sharing another new theme song with you. Let's go.
Hello, my name is Jason from Vinyly, and you're listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks, and she does.
I had to overcome a lot of obstacles just to get here.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I'm humbled to have Jason here with me, who owns his own company, a unique one, I must say. It's called Unveiling. So, Jason, thank you so much for coming on the Us People podcast. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. So, you do something really unique. Usually I talk about everybody's background first of all, but when I found your company and found that you were willing to come on the show, I wanted people to understand what you do and why you actually do it. So could you tell us a little bit more about your company and why you went into this direction of doing the company?
Sure. Well, what I do at Unveiling is I press people's and sometimes pets and sometimes meteorites, where we can go there, into ashes, into vinyl records, which are a memento, if you like, of a real record of a person who is living, because you can organise it while you're alive, or who has died and family already have the ashes of the person who they would have liked it. And these are real vinyl records made in the proper way. They're not sort of pretend or sort of half-hearted. They're real vinyl records, and they can be played and they can have anything on there. The best ones are normally including people's voice, but obviously sometimes they're musicians that have their music on there, basically any audio. And the labels, there's room for the labels and the sleeves and the inner sleeves, of course, to have images, which can be sometimes paintings or photographs or notes written to people, written in memory of someone, or perhaps notes they've written, or lyrics, or whatever you like. So basically they are a memento of someone, a real record, if you like. And it came about really in 2005. I think it was. My mother got a job at a funeral director's, which was out of the blue. She'd never worked in one, and I'd never even considered the profession before. And she started pushing me and saying, you got to get yourself in order and start working out what you would like to do, because you'll be shocked how many people of your age are coming through here. And it was a bit of a wake-up call. And through her insistence, I started to consider it and found I had a natural reluctance to do it. I almost wanted to push it to the back of my mind. It's like, well, this isn't going to happen yet. Yeah, one day, but you know. And then even more so, finding that interesting, when I started to question my friends and peers about it, I found even a strong resistance to talk about it, and I kind of found it interesting. And having been making records since the early 90s and releasing my own music and being very involved in pressing plants and everything involved in doing it, I thought, what do I want to do? And I realized that, what I'd like to do is I'd like my great grandchild sometime in the future to put a record on and have me moving the air in the room. So that's where it came from, and really it was never meant to be a business. It was an idea which I was exploring, and I had a friend who was pretty good, and this shows how old he was. He was a Flash website programmer, which I
wow, yeah.
was about to die in December. I think none of those sites would even work anymore, but no one uses them now anyway. And he basically helped me to sort of visualize and put together a way that this might work, while I was looking in the background at how to actually make a record that would work in this way, because normally you don't want anything in your vinyl, you want it as clean as possible.
Yeah.
So it's not straightforward. And it was treated really as a bit of a, I suppose what I ended up with is a bit of an art project rather than a sort of real commercial enterprise, because the best way I could deal with the sort of reality of it was sort of with a bit of humor. So we had, for example, instead of the Grim Reaper, there was the Grim Reaper there who had a record bag over his shoulder, and instead of the blade on the side, it was an autophon record needle, which we changed to mortophon. And then I was playing with it a bit and sort of living on from beyond the groove. And obviously, Vinyly is a bit like the final story on a newsreel. So we even had a raveyard, for example.
A raveyard.
Tombstones. So it was not really meant to actually be anything that would, but it got a huge amount of interest from the press and people who wanted to do it. And I was like crikey, and suddenly I realized the sort of responsibility, and it basically pursued me from there. And I end up now, that's what I do. I have a company that does that. And it was never meant to be, but it kind of happened.
Well, how does it make you feel knowing that the company has evolved so much and doing something that wasn't necessarily, I don't know if you could say it as a passion for you to do it, but something that fell in your pathway to do? How does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, it makes me feel pretty good. I think it is a passion because sound has always been, and obviously I've been making records all the time. And when I sort of thought of the idea, I've just started a label called Death to Vinyl, which was actually a sort of comment on the fact that vinyl was dying, and that was it. It was going to be gone, and I had a passion about vinyl. I love it, and had done for years, and had been releasing a lot. So there is definitely a passion involved, and actually I release more. If you release is the right word, I make more and Vinyly records than I do release now.
Yeah,
a sort of good tipping point. So what I like about it is that. Firstly, I guess a sort of selfish thing. I feel pretty proud that I've found myself through my own fault having to deal with people who are grieving, and I've obviously very quickly, being fairly responsible, realised the importance of doing that correctly, and I was very pleased to realise I could, and people were very happy with how I dealt with it. And when I made these records, people were very happy. I was also pleased with a lot of surprising aspects of it, which, for example, were the idea was obviously based on me planning it for myself, which is very hard because you never know exactly. Every day it changes what I want to be on there, and it will be what it is when the time comes, and it might not be exactly what I want, but there won't be any choice then. And I found that there's a lot of people who have Ashes of People initially who they knew would have loved it. And also people who have obviously heard about it before and then passed away and said that's what they wanted. And probably one of the biggest things, having lost a few friends who I've made music with quite intensively over the last 20 years, have passed away. And despite the fact I'd spent the last 20 odd years with them almost every day, traveling, doing gigs and things, and knew them, and most of our sort of recent-ish memories were together. When the funeral came, for example, I might not have ever met their family or their mum or dad, and I found that a thing that's made me sort of very pleased about it is that when you make these records, you can make sort of you can make as many as you could make, which is a lot out of an entire run. But generally, people make between 5 and 30 copies. But it means that not just your immediate family, not just your extended family, but also your friends, who you have often spent a lot of important time with before you die, get something that they can have and sort of hold and play that means something to them. So that's probably one of my biggest satisfactions from it, I would say.
How does it work in the terms of how the process is done? So say for instance, like you say, somebody passes away, how do they come to you and how do you process everything? Or how does it all work from beginning someone comes to you till the end where you've actually made a record?
Well, sometimes it's very quick.
Mhm.
And often it can take up to 2 years because
Oh,
we encourage people to make sure that they've made it right. Often people initially think, "Oh, I want this song and that song, and we're going to have this," and they don't realise what sort of options are available. And a lot of the options that we've got have been invented by customers as well. For example, like tracks of silence. Just so that you can just hear the sort of minimal pop, the crackling pops of the thing, which is quite a nice sort of idea, and different things visually, where barcodes with people's birth dates and the date that they died and things. So there's quite a lot of ideas that we had, and also that people have sort of provided when they've made theirs. So we spend a lot of time making sure that people consider everything. And one of the important things I think is that if you can, you get someone's voice on there, because music choice is great, but it's very personal. And when you're planning for yourself, I think now we sort of settled that, look, you have one side where you plan for yourself and you have one side where your friends and family choose, because something that reminds them of you might not be what you'd expect. And it might not be, I don't know, hardcore Metallica or, something sort of some underground music that most of your family might not enjoy. They're never going to play that, but they will even play your voicemail message, for example. And so things like that have been, we try to sort of let people take their time. And often people contact us early on, and then they go through phases where they're not feeling up to organizing things. So we just let these things take their time. But what happens is they'll contact us. We'll speak to them generally about what they want, whether they want a printed sleeve and printed labels, 1 or 2 sides audio, which is quite important because we're making real records here, which is it's not cheap to fabricate the materials you need to press a record. You have to master it. You have to cut it. You make your lacquers, or what can be known as dub plates, 1 for each side, and then you make tin stampers from each of those. And normally, when you make, I don't know, 100,000, 200,000 records, or even a few thousand records, that cost is split between every copy, which makes each unit cost very low. If you're only making 1 copy, suddenly that becomes quite expensive. So there's options where there's areas where you can save money, like not having printed sleeves, and putting a clear cover and getting a printed insert, for example, or black labels and writing something, or sticking on labels yourself. So those things are decided. And then the first thing we need to do, if they have printed covers, is that actually takes longer than anything. So we organize the artwork, and we also need the labels before you press the vinyl. So the first thing would be to organize the artwork, and that goes back and forth. And we help. We've got a designer in-house who's been a graphic designer for many years, and she's done album covers, etc. And so she can either work with them, or they can have templates to design their own artwork. And then once that's off, we would then look at the audio, and they'll send us their audio, and we'll start to master and get that prepared. And then once we've got that sort of underway, we'll then organise a date when approximately it'll be getting pressed, and we organise for their ashes to be sent, or we meet them to collect them, however people like to do it.
Wow, that sounds amazing to be able to do that. I would love to come and see you do that one day.
Yeah,
That'd be
you can.
that would be pretty cool. That'd be. Let's talk a little bit about the first time you ever pressed the record in your company. How was that for you? What feeling did that give you, knowing that you're giving somebody a form of comfort? I see it as a form of emotional comfort because they have something that they will be able to have for the rest of their life that will remind them of someone that they love or care about. What was it like for you getting the first customer to come in and make an order, but then also make the actual vinyl itself?
Well, it was terrifying.
I didn't think you were going to say that.
No, I mean it was great. It was amazing, and I knew how I wanted to do it, but it was still, you really realise the responsibility you've got at that stage. But it was terrifying. But I knew what everything was. We knew what we were doing, but it was frightening. It was exciting, and it was very satisfying ultimately. But also a lot of the feelings were very similar to when I put my first vinyl out, because like I said, I've always loved it, and when I released my own first vinyl on my label, I was blown away. So a big part of it was kind of the same as that.
Yeah.
And then it was just taken to another level. So it was good, and it is every single time, because everyone is completely different, and you know what it means, and it's very satisfying in that regard.
Do you have any unique customers who stand out from the rest where you can say, I had this really unique story that I would love to share on the actual podcast?
I think that a lot of them are very personal, so I have to be careful with that. It's a bit like
Oh.
I can't really it's not the sort of thing where I can go, look at this one we did that was translucent purple and it had so and so, it's not appropriate. So you've got to be careful. And it sounds a bit sort of naff, but really every single one is amazing. Some of them have been with people who were famous and involved in music and all sorts of areas. Some of them, and most of them, are people who loved audio or music or their dog or whatever it might be, and everyone is just great in its own way. I think standout has to be things that may be slightly off kilter from what we normally do. And for example, one we did was for an artist, which was she actually got a meteorite and crushed it up, and then she got field recordings of a volcano, an earthquake, and these are about 13 minutes long, each of these really high quality field recordings, and was it a tornado or some kind of strong wind? I don't know the exact word. It was a typhoon, I think she referred to it as, and she had some kind of poetry on it, and we actually cut them on a scully lathe, it's called. So rather than having one track on the outside, one track on the inside, with a gap between, sort of, they all start at the beginning in a different groove. So you have to almost try and find the right groove, and they all spiral in together to the end. Yeah, so that was quite interesting. And also because it was a meteorite, it was very odd material, because it was oily. I don't know if it was oily because it came from somewhere out of space. But in order to be able to press it, I had to sort of dry it out. And actually, I don't know what's going to happen to me from doing this, but I put it on a very low heat in my oven, actually, on a baking tray for a while. And I went out for the evening, got back and fell asleep on the sofa and woke up thinking, what's that weird kind of
smoke?
It wasn't smoke. It was like a weird sort of vibe. I don't know what. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to grow an extra nose or sort of turn into an alien or something. So that one was a good one, but I had to sort of dry it enough so that it wouldn't clump, so that we could get it pressed in. So I think that one stands out for being very different. Other ones we've done again away from ashes and remains was another artist who actually had some instruments. They had a score written, and then they had it played and videoed in a room by wood instruments, cellos and violins, etc. And the score and the music scores they were playing from, and the instruments were set on fire while they were playing. And then they sent us the ashes, and we pressed the recording of that and the ashes in the record. So things like that are standout because they're different to the, if you like, normal records we make. Yeah.
I love things that are unique and of the not normal, if you can put it that way.
Yeah. So they're taking the concept and sort of applying their art to it, which I find quite exciting and interesting. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Let's talk a little bit about your background, Jason, because normally that's where I start with everyone. Tell me a little bit about your background and where you grew up and how music actually influenced you anyway to get into it.
Well, I mean, I grew up in London, West London.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just loved music. Bought records from when I could get myself to a record shop and had any money to do it. And when I didn't, I went and looked at them, and had them nicked and lent them and lost them and all those sorts of things. And never really, I mean, I tried playing instruments a number of times, but was sort of given a classical guitar and a foot pedal to put my leg on and was like, this isn't what I mean. And actually was really into more sort of what you call, music with instruments, and played very much into that. And then electronic music came along, which I wasn't really into initially. I mean, when the late 80s, a lot of my friends started going to all this, the acid raves and things, and I was like, I'm not quite satisfying. But I could see the party side, but it wasn't doing me, and I was very much into my music. And then it sort of kept going, and then I heard a bit more industrial stuff and started interesting me. And then I sort of started to realize, look, I could actually make music without needing a band and without having to be able to play an instrument, because I had a lot of, I mean, I've got sort of piles of drawings of me sort of writing music, but without being able to write music. It's sort of now don't make any sense, but at the time I knew exactly what I meant. And hassled to get in a studio. It was the Strong Room Studios, actually, which are in Shoreditch. Yeah. And I got a sort of little studio up in the top corner with the pigeons. Eventually, the guy just let me hassle him to get in there, and then started making music with the help of an engineer, because I didn't know how to even use the equipment. And then started a label, started releasing music, and started playing gigs and doing parties, and that was in the early 90s, I suppose. And it sort of went from there. It's very much an underground thing. I didn't really make any money at all. Did occasionally from gigs, but that wasn't what it was about.
Listen, if something makes you happy, I always say to people, go and do it. It doesn't always have to make you money, but if it's making you feel something inside, then go and do it.
It was absolutely doing that. That's exactly what it's doing. And even now I get goosebumps thinking about that. And I'm still fully on that tip when it comes to music. That's what I'm about with it. That's my excuse for never being hugely successful, but it's true.
I don't success is such a okay. I might as well ask you now because we're on the subject. Success is a word that people use so elusively. But if I was to ask you what success means to you, Jason, what would you tell me? Because everybody's got a different definition of it.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, I would say success from my point of view is the fact that I can still, at my age, and I'll be 50 in a month.
You don't look 50.
Thank you. But I will be, whether I look it or not. And I still get art. Well, actually, that's not true because I can't do them at the moment. But this year I had, I don't know, about 12 gigs booked. Still get asked to go and play. I'm still, it's very small, very niche sort of style, but it struck a chord with people, and it still does a bit, and that to me is success. It's not financial, but it's definitely a success in that regard. And it's still something that I get a lot of pleasure from, particularly playing live,
Yeah.
and releasing records. So I would say that is it. It'd be nice to get a bit more money for it, but whenever I had the opportunity to, maybe a certain label would ask for an EP, I'd actually turn it down. I was very much this is underground. This is not about money.
Yeah.
When I started,
Yeah.
and then I was like, maybe if I'd done that, maybe something else. But the fact is, whenever I slightly thought, right, you know what, I don't need to be doing building to pay for this, and thought, no, I'm going to get more gigs. I just didn't enjoy it because I was having to get a gig. I was
Yeah.
having to do it, and it just spoilt it for me. So I never took that route and just kept doing what I wanted to do. And very pleased to say, there's enough people, never many, it's never absolute. Sometimes it's rammed, but never absolutely rammed. But there's enough people for the club to work, and I get a few gigs, and I'm still doing it now. So that would be probably, I have to say, I'm fairly successful in that regard.
There you go. See, so it's never a bad thing.
No,
But do you think, Jason, that if, say, for instance, you got signed by a major label, or even an independent label, and became really successful, do you think how can I say, do you think that you would still be doing the company that you have today? Do you still think the epiphany of it would have come to you?
no, well, probably not. Probably not. Probably not at all. No. Like I say, this wasn't done because the music didn't work. It was just, so
Yeah,
maybe it would. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows?
I think that's the blessing of life. You never know.
No, exactly.
No,
But
I tot-
that's the thing. Just these things come up, don't they? And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the
Is
result
there
of
anyone
everything.
who inspired you, Jason, to do music? Who do you look in high regards, in the sense of who inspires you? Who do you admire within the music industry?
Gosh, loads. And loads and random. I think probably for the thing that sort of got me most into actually ending up, because I've gone through all sorts of phases now, like everything, and I really do anything that's good. But I'd say George Clinton probably is the most,
Yeah,
for me,
that's,
just answer.
that's fair enough.
I know everyone says it was Stevie Wonder. Can't help but say that. There's obviously there's anyone who makes anything good and is doing
Yeah,
what they love doing, and you can hear that. And if they mean it and they're not just regurgitating what
that's
they
true.
did, I think
Yeah.
is what inspires me in that regard.
I'm a big Fleetwood Mac fan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, and like it. Yeah,
I'm a big Fleetwood Mac fan. So the writing, the way they were, the drama
yeah,
in, in the band,
yeah.
it all impacted it to make it such a great band, I suppose.
Well, Funkadelic certainly did that as well, didn't
There you go. I went to see them live. Oh my gosh, they were crazy.
Well, I saw him on his own. I wish I'd seen Funkadelic when they did the old
Yeah.
shows and stuff. I'd have loved to have seen that. But anyway, you can hear it. You don't need to go and see it. You can do it with your ears. You can hear it in the records.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. If you sound like you've made a lot of records, you've met a lot of people. But if there was one person who you would really love to meet and have a conversation with about music, who would you choose? I can see you thinking already, even before I finish the question. Who would you? He's covering
I
his
just
face.
feel that I'm never going to get there, but I've
Yeah.
tried hard.
Who would you choose, Jason, and why would you choose that particular person?
Is it music?
It could be music. It could be someone a family member, but just
Like
someone.
anyone, you mean?
Yeah, anybody who you would love to have a conversation. If you could bring them back alive or dead, or it doesn't matter, who you would love to have a conversation with.
I've got a weird one for you.
Go on.
My mum, who's alive, but to actually be able to purely talk to her as the amazing person I know she is, as me,
Oh,
without it being mum and son and everything that's gone on. Not there's anything's bad, and it really hasn't. She's just been amazing, but I'd love to sort of be able to talk to her like I've met her in you know, in a club when we gone out, I'd love to meet her pure, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a good one. I've never heard anyone say that
I
to me.
know
Like,
it's a bit weird, isn't it? But no,
oh no, but then you have a different mindset.
yeah, exactly. You wouldn't. I'd, you know, I mean, I know she's great, but I would just find that probably most interesting and inspiring for sure.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I like that.
I hope it's
Yeah.
not just weird.
No, I don't think it's weird.
No,
Like,
I don't, but yeah,
it's definitely unique for you to want to see somebody in their purest form, because every time you meet someone for the first time, you're always kind of seeing them in their purest form until you get to know them.
yeah,
Start to see their imperfections, which I say are perfections in a person, because
exactly.
it's like having unconditional love. Unconditional love means you're not loving somebody with conditions because you want them to change. You're just loving them for who they are,
Yeah,
you know? And that means a lot to me anyway. It means a lot to me.
exactly. Yeah. No, I
So
agree. I agree. I mean, I just think that would be a very interesting one. I think that she's probably the most upfront and honest, to the point of rudeness, person I know. But you know, the fact that I just always slightly feel like I'm just not quite being able to tell her what I really want to say because she's my mum, if you know what I mean. So I
you
find
know,
it a bit frustrating.
but sometimes we feel like that, but sometimes our parents actually want us to
Oh, I'm
say,
sure. Well, I know I'm a parent now. I know that that's what I'd want, but it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's almost like a generational sort of.
yeah, it's like a generational separation, but at the
Yeah,
same time, the respect.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a time thing, and growing up in a different time. And I always thought that, you know, I was always slightly. I had Swiss grandparents who actually
Yeah.
knew better than my English ones, but I didn't
Wow.
see them as much.
Yeah.
But I felt sort of like I was more on a par with them. But because they were such a gap, um, generation wise, I almost felt like this bit I'm talking about with talking to my mum just wasn't there. So it was almost like I'd love to have been able to spend a hell of a lot more time with them now, because
Yeah.
you could learn so much from them about sort of real stuff rather than
Yeah.
all the stuff we do day to day.
Do you think that you ever would have that conversation with your mum? Do you ever think that it would come out? Because you never know what the future holds. But do you think it ever happen?
Well, I'd like to think so, but I find, you know, I just get, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of people. I know a few of my friends I've talked to about it. I'm just like, because I either was desperate to get out of home just to go out and
Yeah.
have fun, or then I lived quite a long way away from her, and now she's back in Switzerland. And I think, you know, you think, right, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna really sit there and spend some time with her. And after about an hour, you're both getting in each other's wick, and you're just going, right, I'm gonna go meet my cousin down the bar, and you're like, shit, excuse me, sorry, you're like,
Hey, you know you're allowed to swear on the
oh right, okay, yeah.
I've had podcasts full of swearing.
Oh, I mean, good job she's not on, because you would have had to have muted a few bits by now. That's for sure.
Oh wow. No, no, no. I think, like you say, having somebody in their purest form is the best form of having a
Yeah.
person.
Well, I think she's there for me. It's just me not being able to do it. Is the bit I'm talking about. Probably.
I think it will happen, and it will happen when you least expect it.
Yeah. Well, I better be quick as well, because, like I say, I'm 50, and she'll be going for a while, but she's living in Switzerland now, so you know,
Yeah.
got to make sure it happens.
It will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll definitely catch up with you to see whether or not that happens.
If nothing else, I'll play her this, and she'll go, "What?
Should be like, what?
What's he going on about?"
What is the best advice you've ever received from somebody, and how has it helped you?
Um, um, I don't know. I mean, look, God, you're really landing them on me here.
Yeah.
I think probably you you only get out what you put in. I think you can just be lucky. You can, but it will only be fleeting and not full. But when you actually want to do something, and and then you give it, and add, you put your effort in, it's amazing how much you get back from it. You get back what you put in. I think it's probably the best bit of advice I've realised was right, but didn't listen and take. But I've sort of wasted my time learning myself rather than listening at the time.
It's not a bad one, actually. It's not a bad one at all. Here's another one for you that might
Oh,
make you.
now you're frightening me.
No, 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 no. I won't frighten you. Jason. What is the question that you feel people should ask you, but they never really do? You see how you talk, see how we just spoke about your mother
Hmm.
and you wanting to speak to your mother. Now it being in the reverse, what is it that you want people who care about you or just in general to have a conversation with you to ask you the one question that you would love people to ask you, but they never really do? What would that question be?
I don't know. I'm stuck. I'm stuck.
Like,
I'm stuck on that one. You might have to. I might have to call a friend or something, or whatever you do. I'm not sure. Do you know what? I can't think. I can't think what that would be.
you know what? I'll give you some time. I
Yeah,
think what I usually do with everyone is when they get to that question, because that is quite a hard question.
it is. It
Mm.
is.
And sometimes it makes you think, and it's kind of one of those questions that you'll think when you're by yourself, one
Yeah.
of those moments. So what I normally do is I make people think for a little while, and when their podcast is ready to come out, I come back and say, "Have you
That
thought
would
about
be
it?"
good because I might well.
And I
It would
write
be a
it in
good
there.
thing for me to think about because do you know what? All that comes out silly, sort of jokey ones like, "What do you want a pint?" or something like that. So I'm not obviously not thinking right. So you will have to give me a bit of time for that one. But it's a good question.
Fine. It's
Good
absolutely fine.
question.
Oh, here's one that might be a lot better for you. If you woke up and you had infinity money, so you had an unlimited amount of money in your bank account, what would you change in the music industry?
In the music industry, what would I change? Do you know what? I'm not sure. What I would do is I would help people who are putting in the effort. I would help them as much as I could. I wouldn't change anything because I think you gotta you gotta make your own way, and it doesn't mean
That's
anything
true.
unless you do. But definitely, some people deserve a bit of help, and other
Yeah.
people who get it arguably don't or didn't. Um, so I think what I'd do is I'd think of a cool way to make this available to people who are doing the right thing.
I like that. That's a good enough answer for me. I like that one.
So I know I've only got one to come back on.
You only got one to come back on, okay? What advice would you give to people looking to go into the music industry? What advice would you give them from your experience about being positive and trying to push themselves to be where they want to be, success wise, because we spoke about success, but also support and loving what they do? What would your advice be?
Well, I wouldn't be able to give any meaningful advice in regard to financial gain, I don't think, because I obviously, it's not something I've pursued and it isn't something that's really happened. But
Yeah,
but in regard to if you really love your music, I would just say keep doing it and do it your way and as for as long as possible keep complete control of it. And I think now that's why I find it hard to answer the first question you asked about what you change. I think there's a lot of stuff. It's a lot easier for anybody to make music.
yes,
Really, whether or not it gets heard on a large scale, I don't know. But with the internet, which is something that came after I started, I mean, I started and it was if you didn't buy the record when it was available, that was the last, and you had to invite the
yeah,
person to play it, which I found very exciting. So I was very bemused by it all for when people start sharing it and it's all done it digitally. But that also means there's a hell of a lot of rubbish out there, but there's a hell of a lot of people who are just able to sit in their room and release stuff and get heard. So you just got to just keep at it.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Here's one for you. So the company and Vinyly, if anybody was to in the future want a company similar to yours, what advice would you give them about actually going into that kind of direction of having a company like yours?
I would give them advice. Well, if it was doing what I'm doing, I would say make sure, think about what you're actually doing, in regard to dealing with people who might be feeling very sensitive at the time, and that you need to be aware of that. Like I said, it kind of surprised me, and I realised, luckily, quickly the responsibility I had, and like I said, happily managed and have been able to deal with that well. So you couldn't just do it without considering that, because you got responsibility. And apart from that, I think that's probably the advice, really. That's the best advice. But anyone who wants to get involved in anything if you want to sort of group it as something that's completely different, then just keep doing it. It might not be that it can make you any money immediately, and you might not be able to give up your job as a postman or a labourer or whatever. But if you really want to do it, it will happen if you put enough effort in, and it might mean doing it in the evenings, in the night when you wake up and think about it, on top of what you're doing. And if it's meant to be and you're putting your effort in, then it will, I'm pretty sure, happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. What would you like your legacy to be when you finish with this world?
A record that I'm pleased was made with my ashes in, that I'm proud is played, and one that actually lasts past about 3 or 4 generations would do me fine.
Yeah, that'd be
Even
pretty
if it's
cool.
in second-hand record shops, the people finding it in there going, what's this?
Someone will buy it. There's always someone who will find it.
Yeah, they don't need to buy it. They just need to play it. I just
That's enough.
keep the neighbours up when I'm gone.
Okay, guys. So Jason wants you to wake up the neighbors.
No, I don't wake the neighbours up. But yeah, that was a flippant comment. But yeah.
Here's one for you. If you had to go back, I've only got 2 more for you, but if you had to go back to a memory that made you feel happy and positive, or any particular memory, actually good or bad, what memory would you choose, and why would you choose that particular memory to go back to?
Well, I have to remember something first.
It's pretty much like time traveling.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but the other way, I like thinking about the one going forward. What memory? What one? So what? A vivid memory? You mean?
Any memory that resonates with you that you feel is like, I love this memory because, and if I had a chance to go back and live it again, I would go back and live it for that one day.
How about being able to walk around without a mask on my face?
That was a good day.
That would do me fine.
Let's go back to January.
Yeah.
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 I wouldn't say let's go back to March, but I would definitely say let's go back to January.
I think I don't know. I'm getting confused with the sort of thought of it, of like sort of a memory of where maybe I'd have changed something to be now, or whether a memory of just being in that moment. And I sort of got loads. I would find it really hard. It's a bit like choosing what I'm going to put on my record. I'm finding it almost impossible, and that's why it changes every day, because there's a lot of my memories. For example, one of the reasons I got involved, I like the idea of a record memento and sound, is because when I go back through my DATs, where I used to record a lot of field recordings and drums and things out of them, I can play a DAT from 1994 and I might be recording banging a box with a banana, but actually what happens in the background is I don't know, someone shouting something or my friend sniffing or someone coughing, and suddenly it brings back that moment. And I find that audio recordings do a lot of that, and so I love that. But that's not a specific thing I appreciate, but it's a kind of a general sort of feeling of being transported back. I'm finding this is a difficult question. I might have to come back to you on that one.
No, I understand it because it's something that sound is so important, and sound can bring back memories from the past that you never even thought that you would remember.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, smells do as well, I'm sure. They don't affect me as much, but the thing I like about sound is it does literally move you. It does
Yeah.
literally vibrate you. And I found for sure that I can look at a photo and have no idea how I got to that place in that room photo, or even the people who were there. But if I hear something, and it might just be me, but one of these old DATs, it brings back the whole sort of time at that period and lots more detail than I would it's surprising how much detail it brings back.
See, I love that. And my final question for you, Jason, is where can people find you if they would like to get in contact with you, just like I did?
Well, they can find the website. I'm not massive on social media. Where did you say you found me?
LinkedIn.
Oh, right, LinkedIn. Yeah, well, that's new. I've only been doing that for the last few months. I was sort of against it for a long time, and I'm still not massively. I don't do Facebook and things, but I don't have particularly strong opinions either way. And I think maybe I should do it, but don't really know how to. But yeah, there is LinkedIn. I think it's my name, is it, or is it Vinyly? But that it's under. Not sure.
No, it's your name.
Yeah,
It's your name.
Jason Leach. But the website, and this is the bit that gets tricky now, it's www.andvinyly.com. And Vinyly is spelled ANDVINYLY.com.
Yeah, that's it.
But good luck, because you'll probably get it wrong, because I still do. And I deliberated, should I call it VINALLY, Vinyly, or shall I just stick to the vinyl? And in the end, I stuck with the spelling for vinyl.
See, that's good enough.
VINYLY.com. And I'm there.
Yeah, you are actually, because I was on it just like literally a couple of hours ago, reading it, and I was like, oh, this is cool.
Good.
Jason, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Yes People podcast. You've been such a great guest.
Thanks.
No, you're most welcome, guy.
And I'll try to get you the answer to that very hard question. I'm not convinced I'll find one, but I'll try. And I'll try and give you a better one to the memory as well, because that's good. It'll be a good thing to think about. It'll do me good. It'll do me good.
I have a feeling that you will sit down at nighttime, because people always think the most at nighttime.
Yeah.
And that's when something will come to you and you'll be like, oh, I remember the question Savia asked me. And then you'll think about it and it will ponder on you for a while. And then when you least expect it, it will just come.
Exactly. And I'd like to, hopefully that's the case. But you'll have to remind me.
Okay, no, that's fine. I got that.
I'll try to think about it. Okay.
Guys,
and meet you, yeah.
You too. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the Yes People podcast. And please remember you can subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also donate to the Yes People podcast by going on the Savia Rocks website or just typing in paypal.me/Us People podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, continue to be kind to one another.
Hi, my name's Jason from Unveiling. You're listening to Us People, is it? Us People podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, I better start again. Take 2. You have to stop laughing. You have to.
God.